uppercut, uppercut, sonic boom! Well, hello there, humans of these other things, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, and if you're lucky enough indeed to be doing it too, welcome back to Channel I'm Bushkin. Today's video is a video heavily influenced by my good mate Fates, the hot diggity dog Australian YouTuber who just makes the world a better place to be in. Good on you, Fatesy. He was bemoaning the fact that the QBZ95, it's not an Erringle, but there's an on-hit effect that's fantastic, and that it's, you know, a gun that doesn't get a lot of work. And there it is, the Plume Glow QBZ, the Nether Phantom QBZ, and it's in the shop at the moment. And so a lot of people are wanting to know, what does a QBZ do? What's the difference between it and the SCAR-L and all the other guns in the game? And before they go and blow 30 materials and, you know, a week's worth of, you know, food and mortgage repayments on it, maybe I can give them a little bit of a hand and help them out with that and tell them what's good about it, what's not so good about it. And there are some things that aren't so good about it, and a few other bits and pieces. So the QBZ95 is the SCAR-L clone, but it's not an exact clone of the SCAR-L. In terms of recoil, bullet speed, damage, rate of fire, it's the same. That's not a difference. Obviously, there's a couple of things that you really love out of 5.56 AR. The ability to spray, the ability to be very accurate with a low recoil profile. Those are great things. And it's typically 5.56 with this stuff. But where it really struggles is in reload speed. The QBZ95 is a bullpup style weapon, which for PUBG Mobile means they slow down the reload. The base reload speed on the SCAR-L is 2 seconds, or 2.1. The base reload speed on the QBZ95 for a full reload, it's 3 seconds flat. That's a big, long reload, okay? You can get the QBZ95 with an extended quick draw mag down to 2.1 seconds, but you can get the SCAR-L all the way down to 1.5 seconds on a big reload. And that's very, very important for me. It's why the SCAR is still better than the QBZ95. Because in real close quarters gunfights, that reload is dead air. It's where you've got to, if you're running, say, a Car9 or an AWM or something in your second slot, that dead air will get you killed because people are pushing you while you're on your reload, or you've taken damage and you're in the middle of a three-person push. I went and ran a lot of QBZ95 in TDMs just to see how it went, and the reload thing is noticeable, but it's typically 5.56 AR. It's interesting to me that the real buffs to the QBZ95 and the SCAR-L and the AUG A4 have all been centered around improved killing times in CQC. The AUGs dumped a whole bunch of damage and rate of fire. The SCAR-L has received a big damage buff, but both the QBZ and the SCAR-L have outstanding recoil profiles. They're every bit as good, if not slightly better, on their recoil than the M416. Look, I've got to say this, and this might be an unpopular opinion, but the M416 has become the worst 5.56 AR in the game for me. Outside, of course, of the FAMAS. I don't even consider the FAMAS. It's terrible. And it's not that it's a bad AR anymore. The AUG is amazing at one thing: lying down sprays. Apart from that, it does everything else worse than every other 5.56 variant. The QBZ95, the SCAR-L, the AUG, they all have better damage and slightly better recoil in terms of, you know, base control. But when you think about that, I want you to consider this. The QBZ95, its recoil is really easy to control, and it has a base damage of 42. That means that you get a better base damage time to kill into a level 2 vest. You get the same 909 meters a second bullet speed that you get on the M416. The AUG's is the one that gets the special 937 meters a second bullet speed, which is great. It means it's very, very easy. Even in auto, you can find taps like that very, very cleanly. It's just a really good gun. It's worth spending money on if you're going to play Livik or if you're going to play Sanok. I have an issue with this. My love of Sanok and Livik is very, very limited. I prefer Livik to Sanok. We played one game of Sanok trying to get QBZ95 footage today, and it was just disgusting. People in boot camp were all well and good. They wanted to come and fight. You can see people holding angles. That's a problem. But people in the grass of Sanok, it didn't matter what gun you had. It was the person lying down in the grass that was going to be a punish. The guy who ended up winning Sanok was some bloke with a UMP who was lying down in the grass and just third-partied everyone else. And the QBZ is not going to cure that. But it is an absolutely comparable 5.56 AR. And the biggest part about the QBZ95 is that it's versatile. I don't have the skin because I already have 2 upgradable QBZ95 skins, and it's not a map that I play often enough to get. But here's the thing, it's versatile, okay? The versatility of 5.56 ARs is what gives them some joy. And the fact that it's got that little bit of gravy on top of the M416 in terms of base damage means that you are better at CQC with the QBZ95, and you can still spray the eyes out of anything. Like, it's a great spray weapon, right? That's just a given with a 5.56 AR. And if you run it on the Switch as your long range with, say, a AKM or a P90 or something like that, you'll do plenty of damage with it. Excuse me. It's been a funny journey for this weapon. It was originally introduced to the game, and we all bought into the armory where it was listed as having all this power and rate of fire and reload. And I used to run it religiously, playing Sanok FPP day in, day out. Like FPP, solo squatting, dropping 20 bombs at boot camp, loving life, running QBZ95. It wasn't though. And once we did the stats on it, we realized, well, it's an M416 with slightly worse recoil and no tac stock. And that means you're like, well, why would you run it? And once we realized that, and that it wasn't a CQC beast, we went away from it. And that's fair enough. But it is absolutely a gun now that can do a little bit of everything. And it's got a very different aesthetic look to it than an M4 or a Scar. It's got a very different sound. It sounds almost like I don't know. It's like an air-rated version of the Scar L. You know, it's really quite odd. It's got another very strange characteristic that you probably won't realize, and it's something well worth thinking about. It's a horrible gun for hip firing through windows because the sight of the QBZ95 is so high above the barrel, okay? So quite often what you'll find is you'll try and not hip firing through windows, firing through windows that are very, very high sills. You'll zoom in and fire, but the scope is so high above that the rounds are actually hitting the windowsill. Now that doesn't happen very, very often, but it is a thing, hey. It is a thing. It absolutely is a thing. Lovely. Yeah, Switch Car 98. Thank you. And that's particular to the QBZ. There's not many other guns in the game where that's an issue, but it's got that grip on the top, almost like a handle that you carry it with, and then the scope goes on top of the grip. So it is a very, very high. Oh, there's that reload speed we're talking about again. Taking that extra half a second where you've got to stay on your toes and keep yourself just jaunty so that you don't actually get ripped is a really tough time. It's been too long since I did a review of this gun, and it's changed so much. I mean, it's changed so much. For it to be a Scar L clone and the Scar L to get all that kind of buff, constant recoil buffs, and then the QBZ is an afterthought at the end of it, picking those same buffs up. It really did turn me off the gun. I'd love to see it on Erangel. I think we need more access to these weapons, especially considering a lot of us don't like running these event modes. And I mean, drop the FAMAS, give me the QBZ95 on Erangel all day and I'll be very, very happy. Also, is there anyone else who's a YouTuber who actually runs a candid site? Or am I the only one out there who loves it? I'm Bushka. Thank you so much for watching. Look after yourselves. Stay safe in the battlefield. Remember to like the videos and subscribe. And just maybe one day out there, you'll be running the QBZ95 with your fancy on-hit effects and everything, and you'll see Fates and you'll say, hey, Fates, thanks for that QBZ95 video on Bushka's channel. And everyone will be happy. Look after yourselves. Bye for now. Stay safe in the battlefield. Au revoir, etc., etc., etc. Go, 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 go.